What's going on, guys? I hope y'all are feeling good. I'm a little bit underneath the weather. Before I get into this video, I'm going to ask somebody out there, can y'all please sub to my channel? This number right here is not the best of numbers. Whether you're religious, you're not religious, still got a very bad stigma around this number. So I would like somebody to help me get past this number right here. All right, let's take this down and let's get into what I want to talk about first before I get into how Tyson looks doing his newest training, right? So I watched the channel, and I'm not going to say the name of the channel, but it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever listened to in my life. The guy was about the size of my pinky finger, and he was talking about steroids and how Mike Tyson's got red flags for steroids and etc. Now, what I want to show y'all, because the first thing that he said was a red flag was gynecomastia. If you don't know what gyno is, pretty much, should have already had this done. I'm typing in young Mike Tyson because I want to show y'all something whenever I looked up images of Tyson. So the point I'm trying to show y'all right now is gynecomastia is going to be where the areola is or where his nipples are. And what you're looking for underneath the areola is fatty tissue. So pretty much how it happens is a man's body produces an excess of estrogen and you start to get what is nicknamed, referred to as bitch tits, gynecomastia. So what it is where his nipple is, like I said, is fatty tissue that forms underneath. Now, being that Mike Tyson is 53 years old, there's some things that you have to look at with older men. First off, well, not just men, women in general, but when you're talking gyno and men, first thing you got to look at is skin elasticity, okay? As you get older, the epidermis doesn't recede back. So if it's been stretched out by, say, excess weight, you won't see the skin start to recede back. It'll start to get saggy because the elasticity in your skin is pretty much gone. It's just not there anymore. Think about a rubber band that's constantly been stretched throughout its life, and then as the rubber band gets older, it just doesn't stretch back the same. It just stays kind of loose. That's pretty much how your epidermis works as you age. But one thing I wanted to point out to y'all is you can see in all these pictures that Mike Tyson, how his chest is built. His nipples are always towards the bottom of his chest, even whenever he was young. That's just the way he's strung up. That's just the way his anatomy is. That's just the way he's built. So with that being said, let's get rid of this. Another thing that he tried to say was, because you can see this main vein right here, that's a telltale sign of him being on steroids. And he said veiny. Well, first off, it's not called veiny. It's called vascular. When you have a lot of veins that show due to low body fat, you're very vascular, not veiny, but whatever. Moving on. He tried to say that Mike Tyson was 0% body fat. This is nowhere near 0% body fat. If I had to guess, he's around 15 to 20% body fat right here. He looks very good to where he was at. I'm not trying to knock Mike Tyson. He's in great shape. What I'm trying to do is disprove the fact that he's on steroids, because from what I'm looking at, I know whenever I do my hand like this, it looks backwards on the camera. I should be going this way. But if I turn my camera, you'll see the screens over here. But the thing is, he's not that lean, okay? He was, 300 and something pounds. He lost the weight. He looks in really good shape, especially where he was. Then there's certain things, like as far as vascularity goes, he's not that vascular. See, a telltale of steroids is when somebody is vascular for no reason. What do I mean by that? That means that when you see veins that look like sausages protruding from the skin, that's a telltale sign, because, steroids can increase your vascularity, because not only does your heart get stronger and everything beats faster, but it cuts down good cholesterol in your bloodstream. So therefore, that means blood is flowing through the veins easier, which translates to faster. So and then if they're doing like clenbuterol on top of it, EPO, whatever, you have more oxygen going through your veins, so it expands it. So to me, from what I'm seeing right here, He doesn't have gyno, and he's not that vascular, and he's not that lean. So that discredits everything. Like I said, the dude was the size of my pinky, and I find it atrocious that he would even bring this up for clickbait. Also, what people don't understand with men are, when you hit about 50 years old to around, I want to say it's 69 years old. It's somewhere in your 60s, from 50 to 60 something. I want to say 69, not positive. But 1 in 4 men actually develop gyno. The thing is, you can research, with steroids. Why do steroids give gynecomastia? It's not really when you're on the steroids that you get it. It's when you come off of the steroids. So pretty much the human body likes to equalize, right? So you have this high level of test. And then the minute you cut that off to go on your off cycles, as they say, if you don't have something inhibiting the estrogen, blocking it, then it's going to spike to balance what lost for a short time until your test raises back up on its own. So you'll have a complete shutdown. I wouldn't say complete shutdown, but your testosterone levels let's say your test levels are 800 before steroids, right? You do a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Some people never get off of it. Then you really shut down your own production of testosterone. But let's just say you're on a 2-month cycle, right? Before you got on the cycle, you was at 800 tests. Now that you're on it, you're at 1,600 tests because you're just taking it out of your mind. Dangerous levels of taking it, right? Substance abuse, really. Then you come off on that off cycle. Well, what will end up happening is, because your body's been relying on the testosterone for so long, and steroids is testosterone. Just because it's not named testosterone doesn't mean that steroids isn't testosterone. They're all testosterone. They're just different forms of it. So, and they work on different cell receptors, but I won't get into too many technicalities. Anyways, so now you're off on that, say, 4 to 8 week off cycle, right? Once you come off, it'll probably take about a week for it to actually get out of your system. Depending on what you're taking, it could be as quick as 24 hours, 12 hours. I don't know. But it'll drop. And when it drops, you're not going to be at 800 where your body naturally was. Your body will probably drop to, say, 500 test level, right? Because your body has stopped producing its own testosterone. It doesn't need to. It's been getting this outside source that's upping it. So now your own production has been dramatically slowed. So because it's dramatically slowed, when you take that outside force away, now you tank. Now that you've tanked, well, what does the body naturally do? Well, you're at 500 testosterone. It's not there. The body needs it to be there to maintain balance. So now your estrogen rises. So what I just said, you can Google for yourself and look up. You will find conflicting with steroids and health risk and all of that. There's always conflicting data. You'll see some people who say it rises with it, and then other articles that explain what I just explained. Normally when you see it form, it's after the fact because the estrogen levels will rise. So not only do men of his age form it naturally, but then you've got to take into other accounts. What are other contributors to gynecomastia? Alcohol is a big one. Now, I don't know what type of drugs Mike Tyson has done, but he's definitely smoked weed. And you might not know this, but marijuana causes gynecomastia. It is a huge cause. Now, if this whole time in this video, you've been wondering, what do I mean by breast tissue underneath the nipple, the areola, on top of the chest? Well, I'm going to show you an example from Google Images of what gyno actually looks like. And if you want to see like somebody who has a lot of muscle that had it, look at The Rock whenever he was younger. He had it really bad before it got surgically removed. But if you look at this picture right here, this was the best picture I could find to actually show from the side. You almost see how there's fatty tissue forming it to look like a breast, and that's on top of the pectoral muscle. So this is what gyno looks like. When you look here, you do not see gyno. You just see a chest with a low-hanging nipple, as you could say. Now, with that being said, let me get into the meat and the bones of the video. And just in case you didn't get my point, I do not believe he's on steroids. I do not believe he shows any red flags. I believe that Mike Tyson is getting in shape. He doesn't have a lot of abs in this. His chest isn't that defined when you compare it to somebody who is roided out of their mind. Even with lines that are going to be very defined on steroids, his traps, very little detail, is very smooth. His deltoid is very smooth. Right here, the line going down to separate, well, it's not a true separation because inside it's connected, but the separation that you normally see in the shoulders is very smooth right here. And it's not that chiseled on the outer head. So I don't see anything in this that would tell me this man is on steroids. Now, with that being said, I want to get into this video to show y'all how Mike Tyson, as good as he looks, is actually kind of slow compared to how he used to be. Now, what you're going to see at first is he's going to start throwing hooks. He's going to do the little Tank Davis, short little stepping uppercuts that look fast. But what you're looking at here is pretty much the body. So he's moving his hips to throw the hooks. He's stomping his legs and rolling his hips to throw the uppercuts. So you have a lot of body momentum to give you the illusion of speed. And yes, it is quick, but it's not actually pure punching speed because there's a lot of body involved. What I want you to focus on is when you almost see like a 50% deduction in speed when he throws his jab. So I'm going to try to catch that in just a second. So here we go. Let's break it down for you. See, not vascular at all. There you go. Boom. See the speed. I'm about to go back for y'all just so y'all can see what I'm talking about. All right. Now watch how fast it looks now, slowing down. Did you see that double jab? So he goes from fast to it looked like a semi-fast jab to a really slowed down jab. I really want y'all to focus in on that double jab. And you got to understand too, the closer you get to a camera, the faster things look versus I could just go this speed, right? I'm not going to speed up. And as I get closer, it's going to start to look faster, even though I'm only going this slow. So again, I want y'all to focus on the jab because you've got to understand with Mike Tyson being so short, for him to get in, yes, he's got to use this, but he liked to jab a lot. A lot of people don't talk about Mike Tyson's jab when he's coming in. He's jabbing to the side and he's still stepping through. Mike Tyson had a good jab. Wasn't an effective jab? Yes, in the sense that he could use it to maneuver to position of where he wanted to be. But was it a damaging scoring type jab? No, but it was still a good jab because of how he could position his body to your inside off that jab while keeping his face protected behind his shoulder coming in. So it was almost like I don't want to say an offensive. It was like an offense-defense jab. Offense in the fact that it is coming at you, but that wasn't the main goal. It was more defensive because it shielded him so he could step around into you, where you couldn't come around that shoulder with his head behind it to hit him. So again, see the jab right there? This is what scares me the most, is the jab. And again, he throws a straight behind it, but when he throws the straight, you're seeing a lot of body movement, so it gives the appearance that it's moving faster than what it is. And let me give a shout out to this, whoever I pulled this video from. Epic News. Whoever you are, Epic News, I'm giving you a shout out because I did use your video. This is my backyard. Excuse the picture. But we can actually do this to close out the video. But yeah, to close out the video, guys, what the hell? Part of my Dyson vacuum. is on the ground. What a great way to do a video. But that's okay because we're not going to edit. We're going to keep it rolling. But yeah, my point of this is Mike Tyson looks great for a 53-year-old. No, I do not believe he's on steroids. Notice he gives zero indications, zero red flags of actually being on steroids. He looks like a guy who lost weight. Even whenever he was extremely overweight, I would call him obese just because his legs, his arms, everything still looks solid. He just had a stomach. Mike Tyson is something that we don't see in boxing too much anymore because we lose guys like Mike Tyson to other sports. A natural born athlete who was boxing into his 40s, I believe, close to 40, 30s. I don't know. I'm never claimed to be a boxing historian. My eye is to watch how they fight, and I can break down and do my predictions really good to where I believe at the moment I've gotten 21 predictions correct, only 5 wrong. And then in some of them predictions that I got wrong, one was a robbery where we know who won the fight, and the other 4 kind of played out the way that I said they would. It's just the guy that I picked didn't win. So, that's my eye from being in the ring, seeing it. That's what I'm proficient at. Looking at styles, breaking down styles, knowing what they're doing and explaining it because I've done it myself. As far as like knowing their exact age, I'm not an encyclopedia. You know what I mean? I've never claimed that that's my forte. My forte is breakdowns. And, you see I do the scorecards, and I think out of the at least 60 scorecards, only 2 were wrong. And that's proof in the pudding right there that I know what's going on. But this ain't about me. The fact is, Mike Tyson looks great for a 53-year-old, but I think that's where it stops. He looks great for a 53-year-old. Is he going to be able to fight young guys, judging off the jabs that I saw? And of course, the longer you're away from it, the longer that you haven't been doing it, your timing, your speed can be slow, but those double jabs to seeing how fast he normally throws jabs is just, it looks too slowed down, and he would get popped. He would get countered hard moving at that rate of speed against a young lion. So I don't think he needs to be in there. And I know everybody's calling. I think the Holyfield 3 is good. And I only say that because Evander Holyfield is going to get destroyed. I liked Holyfield. I thought out of pure heart and determination, Holyfield has got to be by far one of the top 5 for heart and determination. Holyfield could take a beating and still come forward. Never give up, never slow down, keep attacking. Could get hit with devastating shots and just keep moving forward. So as far as like spirit, top 5 Holyfield. Amazing cruiserweight, good heavyweight. But when you watch him train like he's doing like Tyson, you really see an old man. Like he looks like molasses, how slow he's moving. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to see these guys get in there with young guys like so many people want to do. I understand that Mike Tyson had this aura, this just mystique about him of just pure fear. That's what he put in there, everybody. Just pure fear. And he was so dominant, so great that even at 53 years old, people are excited to see this man come back. But you also got to ask yourself, how did he leave boxing? He lost by just giving up in the ring and not wanting to fight no more, telling you that he lost his determination. I mean, he lost to people like McBride. And that was what, 12, 13 years ago? So I cannot see him being competitive at all with young guys of any. I wouldn't want to see him in there with a B-level fighter. And I'm not trying to diminish his name, but I like Mike Tyson, and I don't want to see him get hurt. And that's the thing. There's that big risk factor of how bad would he get hurt. You know what? Let him do these exhibitions. Let him fight Holyfield. He'll destroy Holyfield because Holyfield's just moving way too slow. He's not coming back from that slow speed. Shannon Briggs wants to fight him. Here's the thing. You would really have to make sure Shannon Briggs is clean of steroids and then let him fight Mike Tyson, because Briggs is notorious for being on PEDs or people expecting him of it before he's been caught. So, and then Shannon Briggs was just active. He hasn't been that long inactive. He would still be active if he wouldn't have got popped for steroids. So I believe he's been inactive for what? Somewhere in between a year to 2 years. So when you've got a guy who was just fighting a year to 2 years ago, that's not something that should be put in front of Mike Tyson. And then I think Andre Arlovski from UFC called out Mike Tyson for a 1-round boxing match, 1-round MMA match. And Mike ain't never done MMA. And at 53 years old, you're not going to be able to pick up wrestling. You're just not. So if Tyson could finish Arlovski within that first round, then he's going to lose by the second round. And the problem with MMA and somebody 53 years old is if Arlovski gets on top of him, then he can just rain bombs down on top of him and really possibly hurt him. So again, I think the exhibitions are good. I think people like Holyfield fighting him are good. If he looks good against Holyfield, then let him go up there against Briggs. If he knocks Briggs out and looks amazing, looks just as fast, then transition back into boxing. I would love for Mike Tyson to not only be the youngest heavyweight champion ever, but the oldest. If Mike Tyson did that, then all the naysayers to him would have to tip their hat and bow. I understand that a guy like Mike Tyson with his record, it's hard to compare guys, say, from the 70s up to guys from the 60s down who had 100, 200 fights. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to compare them because at the same time, you can go back to the 1800s where they would fight 50, 60 rounds, 100 rounds. But the thing is, as I've done research on old fights like that, the rounds were not static. They were negotiated. So in other words, when you see these fights that had like 60 rounds, on the outside, that sounds amazing. Like, how could they fight 3 minute, how could they fight 63-minute rounds? Holy shit, I told y'all I was sick. How could they do that? It's impossible. It is impossible. They wasn't doing 63-minute rounds. They were negotiating time, whether it be 5 seconds, 30 seconds, and then they would stop. And they would take a break, and then they would come back. Then they would stop, they would take a break, and then they would come back. From all the research I did, it wasn't until, I can't even remember, I believe it was like somewhere in the late 1800s that 3 minutes became a thing. And I believe that fights were only 3 or 4 rounds when that transition happened. So you got to keep that in mind too. How could somebody who's been fighting 80 rounds only be able to last for 3 or 4 3-minute rounds? Because they weren't fighting for 3 minutes at a time. But it doesn't discredit what they did. It doesn't discredit how many fights they had, how many fights they've won, you know. So it's very hard to compare eras because guys just don't fight as frequently anymore. And they just don't. So when I say this, it's based off of their accomplishment. In my opinion, if Mike Tyson was to win, if probably 54, 55 years old, a world title, I don't even care if it's the weakest world title, although there is no really weakest anymore with AJ and Fury holding the belt. If he was to win one of those belts and become the oldest heavyweight champion in history, then hands down, you have got to put Mike Tyson in the top 3 greatest heavyweights ever, just off of what he did whenever he was in his prime. After prison, his career was kind of rocky. For him to have a Cinderella Man type story and come back to win, there's no discussion, there's no debate, there's no nothing. Tyson would go down in everybody's. There's already a lot of people who say, as far as heavyweights go, Tyson was the best in his prime with Customata, nobody compared. And I'm in that camp. I've said multiple times, people consider Muhammad Ali the greatest, and I'll give Muhammad Ali the greatest on not only what he did in the ring, but outside of the ring too. He was a great man, not just a great boxer. But I've always said that I believe a prime Mike Tyson would have beat a prime Muhammad Ali, because in my opinion, looking at the way Mike Tyson fights, he fights just like Joe Frazier, except he's faster, stronger, more agile, hits harder. And Frazier, in my opinion, probably gave Ali the hardest fights of his entire career, the 3 times that they fought. So when you've got a guy who's a mirror, but an improved version of that mirror, how can you beat him? You can't. You're chinking your armor, and that's why I've always believed that Tyson would beat Ali. So I honestly, regardless of what Teddy Atlas says, I have Tyson as the best heavyweight in his prime. Period. I don't think anybody could beat him. Now, with that being said, if he wins at 53 plus years old a world title, then hands down you have got to put him in the argument of one of the best 3 heavyweights to ever do it. Ever. Across the board, even naysayers have to tilt their hat to him, because he would do something that nobody's ever done and probably will never do. Ever. Until we get some rejuvenation pills and become youthful again when we're old. Until that time, nobody will do it. Nobody's done it. And if he did do it, he's the first. Thank y'all for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, as it really helps me out. If you really liked what you just listened to, sub to the channel. Please help me get past them 666. Would rather not add that for my sub count. Before long, you're going to have people like, oh yeah, he's Illuminati. Get the fuck out of here. But, and if you agree, disagree, if you think he's on steroids, write in the comment section why, and we'll break that down and we'll discuss. Because I always respond to everybody who types to me, whether it's a troll or a true sub. Again, thank y'all for watching.